Welcome to another video by Pharos Technology. Today we're going to talk about macro debugging and error handling. So let's get started. And I have a macro already built. I'm not going to build a macro in front of you today. I'm going to show you a couple macros. And here's a typical macro that we might build without error checking. And I'm going to put this in design view and just kind of walk through it a little bit. We're going to set a temporary variable referring to my numerator. So we're going to enter the numerator of a division problem. Then we're going to have an input box down here that's going to be entered denominator, and we're going to put that into a temporary variable, my denom, or for denominator. Then the message box is going to follow right after that, where it says this number divided by that number is this number divided by that number, and it's just the two variables in the division problem. So what's going to happen is if I put normal numbers in there, such as 5 divided by 1 or 10 divided by 2 or something like that, it's going to work just fine. But the edge case is the problem. The edge case is, what if I put in a denominator of 0? Well, we know in mathematics that's technically undefined. And being undefined, it just throws an error, and you've got to trap that error. So this is just an excellent example to use in how to trap an error. Well, see, the problem, if I do put a 0 in there, I'm going to enter my numerator. Let's say I'll do the 10. And if I do 2 here, I get 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, that works just great. Now let's put in our edge case. I'm going to go 10, and I'm going to divide by 0 this time, and we get the ugly dialog box that says division by 0. And if you click OK, all you get is a macro box here that says stop all macros. Okay, that means I quit. That's the only option it gives me. So stop all macros means that these two elements down here, stop all macros here, removing the two temp variables, doesn't get executed. Now, where this is critical is not necessarily in this little macro. Where it's critical is if you have a process that runs a lot of different action queries. And let's say one of them's not critical, but that one errors out. Maybe it doesn't have data, or it hits a bad piece of data, but it's not critical, and you'd like the rest of the process to run. Well, if without an error trap in there to tell the program exactly what to do, all you get is the ugly, we hit an error, stop all macros, and it just quits wherever that error occurred. And frankly, the user is going to have a hard time telling you, well, it just blew up. You know, you get those kind of messages back from your users. And it's hard to track that down unless you go to their desk possibly, or look at the software itself, put in the same data, try to recreate the error, and you've got a whole bunch of rigmarole to go through. Let's ease up on that amount of work by show you how to simply catch the macro error. So I'm going to open this one that says macro division with error handling. Okay, so the first part at the top is on error. We're going to go to a macro name here. Now, macro name is actually a drop-down list. In other words, on error, I'm going to do one of three things. I'm going to either go to the next record and continue on, or I'm going to go to a specific macro area and be told what to do then, or I'm going to just bring up that fail box just like it does by default. But at least this gives me two other options to work with. Either I can just send it on to the next one and not worry about it, or I can run to a specific macro name and capture information to feed to the user, and it'll fail over elegantly instead. So I'm going to go ahead and have it go to a macro name. That macro name is going to be called error handler, which is a sub macro a little bit farther down in the macro. I'm going to set my temp variables just like I did before. I'm going to have the same message box, but we saw how this message box errored out when we divided by 0. Next, we run a macro called cleanup. So if it successfully goes through and does not have an error, it just goes to the next thing, which is run a macro and then do the cleanup. And cleanup is down here where it deconstructs the two variables. But if it hits the error, we told it already to go to this thing called error handler. And now here we can then present an elegant message box that says the following error occurred and give the description. And you'll notice that macro error.description and macro error.number are available to us to get the error number so we can do our own research if we need to. And then we can also see the description of what information that will give us. It's still going to beep, and it's going to be a warning question mark box. What happened type of question. Okay. And then in here, it's going to then, after it traps this error, and we click OK on the text box when we've got that information, it then goes and does the cleanup. Where before the cleanup was skipped, now capturing it in the error handler, we put the cleanup in the error handler as well, and it goes to clean up and deconstructs the variables. I've told you that this works, but the neat thing about it is I can show you how to debug your own macros just by using this as an example. So I'm going to go ahead and scoot up to the top here, and I'm going to click this button called single step. Because if I click that button, I get another dialog box pop up that lets me tell it to single step on through or just continue through the rest of the macro. Single stepping allows you to single step until you see where you might have a problem. Stop there, fix it, do whatever you need to, just view it if it's all right. You get to that point and then you can take action, okay? So let's see how this works. We click on run, and there's that dialog box. And I'm right down here, it says what's happening right now is we're in this on error box, this action on error, and its arguments are 1, which is macro name, because the box would have been labeled 0, 1, and 2 for those 3 options. And then the argument for the macro name is error handler. Okay, we're going to go ahead and step. Now it's going to set that temporary variable. And the next step is the inbox asking us to put in the numerator. And I'm going to click OK here, and the single step will pop up again, and I can then step through to the next one. And the denominator, I'm going to go ahead and put 0, and then I can click OK. Next, it goes to the message box. Okay, so the net message box command is coming up, and we know we've got troubles in this next step. So when I click this, the following error occurred, division by 0. So the next thing that's going to appear on my screen is a message box with the following error occurred. And when I click step into that, there's our elegant message box with the error number in the title, the question mark here, wondering what happened. The following error occurred, division by 0. Very explicit and understandable. When we click OK, our box up here occurs again. And so we're going to clear that macro error first. So the error is now out of the way. We'll click clear that. The next thing we'll do is we'll run another macro. We're going to go run that cleanup macro. And we'll step into that. It'll deconstruct my num. It'll deconstruct my denum. And it finished. Now I could run the debug the same way for any macro that I create. I can also run it for a successful iteration here, should I choose to. What's important is that this button up here is there so that you can step through your macros and make sure they're running exactly the way that you want them to run. So if you got some value out of this video, please hit that like button. Let's get it out to more people. Would love it if you subscribed to the network and came back and consumed a whole bunch more videos. That'd be great if you did. I appreciate all of you who do and all of you who don't. But come back often and we'll have more videos for you. Thanks.